evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm going to walk you around a brief presentation around business transformations. Here's a brief bio about myself. I'm a CPA CGA. I have over 35 years experience. I've done a lot of business transformations over my career, whether it's been order to cash, purchase to pay. I've done cost to serve models. I've deployed over 300 data AI solutions. So I'm going to give you some examples where I've ran into stuff, and I'm just going to provide you some oversight. And at the end of the presentation, if you need some further assistance, I'll provide some contact information. So my agenda is going to be pretty crisp, to the point, and you can see from here, I'll talk what transformation is. I'll talk about the challenges. I'll talk a bit about how you can navigate the whole landscape. So what is a business transformation? It can be mean anything at any level. It could be, I'm dealing with some concerns around cybersecurity, so I'm looking at a new way to mitigate threats from cybersecurity attacks in terms of the investment or cybersecurity solutions, other processes around the overall data governance stuff. It could be that I'm struggling with my margins, so I need to look at my overall inventory optimization. So it's multitude of facets. It could be anything. But in a nutshell, it's basically how do I look at my business? What do I need to improve it to improve certain things like my shareholder value, my margins, my revenue cycles, whether that's my sales mix. It's just a combination of things, the way I want to look at moving my organization forward as I compete both short term and long term. Key reasons for business transformations. Typically, business slump, as we've seen over the last probably 18 months with higher interest rates, inflation is driving less consumer spending. We're seeing issues with EV adoption, which is requiring Ford and other companies to pivot around their organizational structure back to internal combustion engines or hybrids. We're seeing that. We're seeing retailers looking at inventory decisions more on the optimization. We're seeing geopolitical events that are impacting the flow of goods through the Red Sea area. So all this is leading to issues and slumps. Mergers and acquisition is picking up steam again, so we're seeing a lot of issues around how you best integrate mergers and acquisition. Productivity is a big thing. You're seeing a lot of conversation around generative AI. That's nothing new. What's really new is around how best to leverage like chatbots to drive the overall customer experience as part of improving your revenue and their overall customer confidence around your product and service offerings. Regulatory change, we're hitting into a huge issue now with ESG reporting, which is driving a lot of it. And that's implementing these policies and driving those metrics through the operation management and regulatory reporting cycle is critical. Supply chain optimization, we're seeing a lot of emphasis around like the chip area where Phoenix, Arizona, and other investments being near shore or back to North America, United States, Mexico, and Canada. So it's critical around the supply chain management optimization. Cost reductions you never get away from. You have a budget. You're looking at your head count. You're looking at your retail locations. In most cases, you're looking at facilities, people, and vehicles are typically where bulk of the cost, along with your maybe some rationalization with your procurement cycle. Generative AI talked a little bit, so there's some technology changes that come in play. Product launch. Most companies continue to do their product launch and they're struggling with that. What do you need to change with your distribution channels, your operations as part of the product launch cycle? And just overall improving cash and other metrics, whether that's return on investment, whether that's EBITDA or other calculations. Why do they fail? Typically, sometimes you're oversold the technology, you implement a poor solution, it's just not driving the outcomes. That's where I've seen a lot of the changes. When we implemented some changes in the order cash cycle, we had the wrong business partner, we had the wrong technology, so we had to pivot. And there's a cost when you have to pivot to re-engineer a process. So it's critical to kind of do your project management and your scoping early on to make sure that you are in the right selection process. Poor change management. Sometimes you're so busy trying to get these costs of the system that you basically don't really work with all the stakeholders as part of the rolling out the plan. And typically this feeds into the poor rollout. I've seen where it works best where you stagger rollouts as part of the user acceptance testing, but some organizations try to rush things out, and that just causes havoc. Lack of commitment from management. Management may say they want to do these changes, but sometimes they struggle with the commitment. And poor project management. I've seen a lot of projects fail because of that. And the last point is lack of metrics. So this slide kind of gives you a couple examples where you can see where Target came into Canada, Walmart, Wendy's, these things. Anytime you enter a marketplace, it's very critical to understand the dynamics of that marketplace. And what may work in one market may not work in another. And this is what you're seeing with certain things happen in terms of the culture and just the overall flow of customer acceptance of your products. As we head in 2025, we've got a lot of issues coming in. Navigating growth is we're still seeing sluggish GDP growth, so that's critical. We're also seeing a lot of geopolitical issues still rising with elections coming. We're seeing a change in movement of government. And just the overall lay of the land with ESG dominating conversations with all sides of organizations in terms of adoption, in terms of policy development. And again, you've got metrics that you're trying to achieve on your financial side, and how are you going to achieve them in terms of managing the gap between where you're heading and the overall market climate. Revenue management is a key area where I've seen a lot of issues with this. Typically, it's been around the pricing models, especially when you're dealing with large stocking SKUs. Trying to get those price increases up to date so you're not leaving revenue on the table is critical. Also, reworking with your sales teams around your sales mix and cycle to look at how you can improve the margins on that. And it's just overall demand planning and doing more. How can I utilize my inventory without having so much dead or obsolete inventory and tying too much cash up in inventory, but tying it back to how I best manage the pipeline, the sales pipeline. Operational expense review, this happens all the time. Some of the expenses you're committed to, like your leases, your employee costs, but there's other things where you cut back, as most companies do in the fourth quarter. They typically reduce travel down, so there's always a constant expense review. Improving gross margin, as you can see, is really comes back to your mix. It comes back to your overall management, your procurement cycle, your product discounting, inventory management. You don't want to lose money because you got a lot of inventory waste and all that. So it's really coming about more demand planning emphasis, more margin on that, price increases. It's looking at the overall cost structure from your finished goods purchase to your manufacturing processes. Net earnings, again, this is taking you after the fact that you've already spent money on your employee costs, purchases, other expenses, as well as you've calculated your tax, your depreciation, and interest costs. So you're looking at all kinds of things that come into play. Whether you're looking at your debt management, repaying debt to get the debt interest costs down. Whether you're looking at basically reducing low-calorie parts of your business because they're no longer value and you're selling them off. It really basically looks at every aspect to improve your earnings. I've always emphasized over my career the importance of gap analysis. And what gap analysis is typically at an end of the month, that's your actual data. And we'll just say that the end of August now is here. They're preparing the information for their monthly reporting. That's your number. That's your actual. You also have your budget that you committed about a year ago, and then you have your forecast. So what you're trying to do is, how do I get back to my budget? Maybe the budget's not realistic anymore, but that's the key measure. What you do now is try to get back to some of your forecasting and what decisions do you have to be made. So that puts everything on the table. It means you're working with all parts of your organization. When I was with Praxair, I used to meet constantly with my management team in Ontario to go through different aspects of our operation, whether it's our plant fill rates, whether it was with our retail locations, whether it was with our administration side. We looked at every aspect of it to see where we can improve our sales, our cost structures, and the overall margin improvements. EBITDA is a good area because it gives you basically the cash spent. from operations. It ignores interest, depreciation, and taxes. So it's giving you a pure look at that. Now, I don't just use EBITDA in its own right. I use it in relationship to other metrics. Free flow cash flow is getting more and more focused. It just gives you an idea of what's going on in terms of your overall flow of cash from your business, because cash is king. We've seen a lot of the large tech companies have a lot of cash reserves on there, and that comes down to the strategy. What do you do with that cash? Do you plug it back into your investments, like acquisitions, product development? Do you do a share buyback? It's all about cash management. This is a good idea. I like to use Warren Buffett because he basically has key metrics he looks at. He's just hit $1 trillion in capitalization, so it's something to bear in mind. Now, I can't overemphasize, like I said earlier, um, there's up in the air. You're going to hear right, wrong, or indifferent around ESG, but it's here to stay. Um, it's just the regulations are going to take time for it to come in, but we're seeing in particular with Australia, they're going forward with the emissions requirement, and that's the certification of that around with their sustainability practices, and so there's director liability now around these metrics. So we're seeing this. It's changing the overall environment and social and governance of organization, and that's going to drive down everything around your performance, because the view of your customer clientele is going to want more insight in terms of your social and corporate governance policies. I'm an expert in the closed consolidation reporting cycle. It's all part of the overall business transformation, because it's still taking significant amount of time to close the books, whether it's for the management, operational, or regulatory reporting cycles. Here's some additional links for you. I write blogs constantly. You can add me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. As I said, I'm pretty well thought leader in many different disciplines. So if I can assist your organizations or provide you some guidance, then feel free to reach out to me. And here's my contact information as well. Thank you.